How to submit Consolidated E-Invoice.
Hi guys, Jason is back here again. So in this episode, I will be covering how to submit our Consolidated E-Invoice to LHDN portal. So in the last episode, I've successfully demonstrated how to submit each one-by-one E-Invoice to LHDN portal, and also how to perform cancellation, resubmission, and also check the status of E-Invoice. So if you haven't found out that video yet, please make sure to check it out. So if you are liking this video so far, please make sure to like, subscribe, and also share to your friends. Just in case that you have any additional question that you might to ask, please feel free to comment down in the comment sections below. So without further waiting, let us start. So going back to our Sales Invoice interface, so how do we submit this Consolidated E-Invoice? Before that, when is the time that we need to submit this Consolidated E-Invoice to LHDN portal? Is that when a buyer doesn't require any E-Invoice. For example, I go to DIY and buy some sponges to clean up the dishes. This means that I buy it for my personal own use, right? That's why I don't need any E-Invoice. That's where the supplier can submit any Consolidated E-Invoice to LHDN portal. So inside the right side panel, select MyInvois button, and then select Consolidated Sandbox Invoice. And then in this new window, we need to take this include unsubmitted E-Invoice and also include the transaction date, and then select apply. And then the system will show you which of the invoice hasn't been submitted as E-Invoice. If let's say all of this invoice is the one I need to submit as Consolidated E-Invoice, we are only need to right click and then take all, and then select next. So over this new panel, it will summarize all of the details from invoice number 1 until invoice number 18 and the lump sum total of each of the value. Okay, and then in case you don't want to only look at the lump sum value, you want to check every single transaction details again to make sure yourself doesn't submit the wrong E-Invoice, then you can untick this merge consecutive invoice number. It will show back all of the details from each of the invoices. After you double check, please tick back again and then select submit. And then in a fraction second, again, it will print out a validated E-Invoice to you. So in this case, the E-Invoice number will be different from each of the invoice that we submitted in the last episode. Why? Because today we are submitting the Consolidated E-Invoice where we don't need any buyer details, right? That's why the invoice number will not following the invoice details. Instead, it will create a new invoice number which is represented by CI, means that Consolidated E-Invoice to you. And then again would be our unique UUID code. And then inside this buyer name will be changed into general public because we don't need any buyer's information. And then the most important thing is the top right hand corner of the QR code. After we do submission, inside our system, how can we check each of the E-Invoice number? We need to go to the top left hand corner, there is a filter button, press it down, and then include E-Invoice submission and also consolidate number, and then it will pop up additional 2 columns that shows you the Consolidated E-Invoice number and also the status of the invoice. Okay, now we only need to select this refresh button, and then it will show you each document that is submitted as Consolidated E-Invoice and the ones who submitted as normal E-Invoice. And then this will be the Consolidated E-Invoice number. So that is how you can submit a Consolidated E-Invoice to LHDN portal. So in the next episode, I will be covering how can we submit this self-built E-Invoice to LHDN portal. So stay tuned for more.